Welcome, modern language students, to our Fulbright information session. My name is Avery Goldman. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Philosophy, and I am the National Scholarship Advisor at DePaul, and I help students apply for all sorts of national awards that typically help students to go abroad, do something after they graduate. So these are awards that you can typically apply for in your senior year to do, or after you've graduated, to give you something to take up once you've graduated from DePaul. And the main grouping of these awards are by Fulbright. And what I'm doing now is I'm explaining the different types of Fulbright awards for which you are eligible. And then we'll go look at the Fulbright website soon. There are three main type of Fulbright awards. The first are what are thought to be the sort of standard typical awards for Fulbright. Those are research awards in which you're invited by a professor in another country at a research institution or university to do your research, to come and visit and do your research there. These are very difficult for undergraduate students with BAs who are about to finish BAs to get. These are often won by students who are in PhD programs already, and they're going to do research towards a dissertation. But students with BAs are eligible for these awards, but you do need to be doing some sort of project that's recognized as scholarship beyond, beyond something you did in your undergraduate experience and something that a professor would invite you to do. If you're interested in this sort of award, building on a capstone or building on an undergraduate thesis of some sort, it's good to speak to your professors to see whether they know someone in those countries to invite you there. You really cannot apply for these without an invitation. And then you would be going there with no structure. You'd be making up the structure. The structure would be your own research. The second type of study research award that is, I think, better suited for students coming out of a BA is an MA award. That is, Fulbright uses some of their awards to sponsor MAs that you would go to a country and do an MA at the university that has agreed to do this, and they would give you free tuition. So you both get a stipend from Fulbright and the tuition award. What's great about this is you're not competing against those PhD students doing their dissertation research. It's almost only other students coming out of BAs. And what's important for these awards, as they're different in every country, is finding the right program. Some of these are extremely competitive. 150 students applying for one award at certain universities like the London School of Economics, but others are not. And finding a university that has a program that you are well suited for, that you're excited to go to, is really the trick here. And I'm gonna show you how to do that and give you some advice on trying to find a good program to apply for. Questions? The third type, besides research MA, what I've listed as second here, are the English Teaching Assistant Awards. Those are ETAs, and those are different kind of Fulbrights. They are Fulbright awards, but in these awards, you don't need a research project. You would be going to teach English in the host country. Certain countries have them, not all do. And for these awards, you often need language experience, experience of the host country's language. Interestingly, as with Fulbright, every country sets their own requirement, right? Some countries, Spain, for instance, you have to have an intermediate Spanish, whereas in Mexico, you have to have advanced Spanish. They make that decision. What sort of level of Spanish, what sort of level of teaching you would do. Would you be working with elementary students or college students? It's different in different programs. I'm going to be showing you where you can look for that information. But all of you modern language students have a real advantage here, both that you can meet that requirement, the minimum requirement, but also that you can often do much better than the minimum requirement. That's really helpful for your applications, that you know about the cultures and that you're advanced in the language gives you a real leg up in these applications, and modern language students have been quite successful in these applications. So those are the three types. What I want to do, I'm going to stop sharing this. I'm going to come back later on. But what I'm going to do now is take us to the website. Mace, thank you.
I was just wondering when in the application cycle, do you Do you have to pick which specific program you're applying for?
You really do. And you're only allowed to apply for one. So that is one out of all the Fulbright offerings, a study of MA, a research, independent research, or English teaching. And that's why one of the reasons why this choice is really important because it really has to be something that the Fulbright Committee thinks you are well prepared for. It makes real sense for you in your future. All those kinds of things. This is not a gap year in any sense, right? Fulbright really wants to sponsor a transformational year that will really, allow you to do something in your career, and they're open to all sorts of things that you might do, not just academics, that you wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. And when you do it, you will have a real connection to that country. You will be an alum of that program from here on, and that program will have allowed you to do whatever it is you're doing. That's what they want to hear, right? Yeah. So that choice is really important, as well as that, as I said, some of them, have 150 applications for one award, and some have 10 applications for one award, which are really different odds. And you shouldn't just choose the best odds because you won't win it that way. But if you can find an award that is good for you, which is say interesting for your research, you're interested in going there, your faculty, and well suited in all sorts of ways, and it's not one of those hyper competitive ones. That's really the sweet spot. Professor Jim.
Yeah, my question is you will advise the students which award is more competitive, right? You'll give some like help them prepare.
Well, yeah, but there are 400 different awards. And so I know lots of them, but what I tell the students is you've got to become the expert on your award, and I'll show you just how much information there is about each award. But yeah, I'll show you two things. I'll show you on the website where you can find that data, and then I'll also send through my sort of cheat sheet of the different MA programs that are probably the ones that we'd be interested in, and I've included that data on them on that form. So yeah. Again, do not, I'm always a bit nervous, showing students where to see that. Do not just apply for the one that's the least competitive. There is some sweet spot, one that you're well suited for, you're excited to do, and is not those hyper competitive ones that are, even if you write a great application, really kind of a lottery of some sort. So yeah, great. So I am going to, what am I going to do? I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to share my screen, but I'm also, if I can do it quickly, yeah, I'm going to send that through the website through, and then I'm going to share my screen here to show the website. All right. Do we see the Fulbright US Student Program website? Yeah, great. So this is the website. Again, there are lots of Fulbright applications, but this is for the Fulbright website for students who've done a BA in the US, are US citizens, and so are eligible to apply as US students to go abroad. If you were an international student, you can apply to come to the US, but you typically have to be in your home country, typically for a year or so, in order to apply for a Fulbright to come to the US. Again, I say a year or so because that's one of the things that is different in every country as well. Countries make that decision about how long one can be there or has to be there in different cases. So I've said a little bit about it. There's tons of information here about the Fulbright program, about their interests, about eligibility. These are all good things to look at. But that's not what we're going to be looking at today. Although it's good to look at their eligibility. There's no grade point eligibility. You have to be a top student. You don't need a 4.0, but you need to be a student that your recommenders you think will say you're a top student. If your GPA is not quite as good, you could still be in the running, particularly if there's some explanation, a difficult quarter, that can be explained. You did well in your major, those kind of things. So if you have questions like that, feel free to email me and come and speak with me. But again, there's no set criteria, but these are competitive and top students get them. So what I said was we're going to take a look. We're going to do a bit of a dive. And so if you look here on the website under countries, you can choose whatever country you want to speak about, and then look at the details. And I just mentioned what I mentioned. I realize there's some people here who would be interested in Taiwan. I'm going to hold off on Taiwan for a moment just because their website is, there are so many. It's such a very dense, very rich. But why don't we look briefly at the one I just mentioned, which is Spain. And so Spain, if you look at, you can look at in a country, and again, each one will have different awards, different requirements. While the general deadline and application process is the same, you've got to look very carefully at the award you're applying for. And so if we click on Spain, what you see is this is a country that has English teaching awards. We'll have 167 of them. And then it has other very specific awards, and these are the MA awards. So it has a 1 award at Universidad de Salamanca. All right. And it will have 1 award in international MBA. Maybe that's not as interesting. It could be interesting for some of you, I suppose, if you've done an undergraduate business degree at IE University, which is in Madrid. 1 other award, i.e. at the international relations at that same IE University. Sometimes these partner university awards that I was speaking about before are specific like that. What you study at that university, they're limited. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're not, right? That is the host country and the university that is giving the free tuition is able to make that decision. And again, that changes sometimes from year to year. So if you are looking, as one of our guests is, for a couple of years in the future, you have to be careful to keep looking. Typically, end of March, they publish the website for the next year with the universities that have signed up. And then at the bottom here, we'll see these open research awards. These are the awards that you need an invitation. And I'm just going to click on, the Open Research Award, and then we'll see, they will say who is eligible. Occasionally in the Open Research Award, only doctoral students are eligible. But in Spain, BA students, MA students, or doctoral students are all eligible. You have to check for that carefully. I'm happy to speak about it, but each award, it'll tell you the degree length. It'll tell you, what they're looking for. It'll say when it starts. They all have different start dates in different countries. It'll say something about, about the award. And this one says that priority is given to students who are in PhD programs. You are eligible out of a BA, but it's difficult to get, as I said. And if we keep going down, all this is an important one, eligibility. You typically can't be a resident in the country you're applying to in the year prior to the award. But this is, again, another oddity of Fulbright. Every country defines what residency is. Some say you can't have been there for 3 months. That's Spain, but some 7 months or even longer. And so you've got to look carefully to see if you're going to be there. If you're doing a study abroad in the year prior or something like that, you've got to see that you'll be eligible. Then this is important too, that whether you need a foreign language evaluation form. And then done, yeah, and what level? And this is Spain, and Spain is typically intermediate level. Right, and so you have to be able to be rated as an intermediate, and many of the professors in the modern language department help do these evaluations for the modern language. You can typically speak with the person who's the head of that language in modern language, or you can speak with me to help direct you there. These are good to get, these evaluations, even if it's not required, but you want to show Fulbright that you really do have the level of language that you're claiming to have. So this whole piece here, this is just for the Open Research Award. If we go back to the prior page, the Spanish awards, we can click on the ETA. Now, if we click on the ETA, each country that has an ETA, they will give a whole bunch of requirements for their ETA. And those too will be different in different countries. Spain is unusual that Spain divides their awards between different regions. In most countries, you can't choose what region you would want to teach English in. In Spain, you have to, right? And so And so in your application, you would be including it. And so that's something you have to find. I can point you towards it, but again, you will find that here, how many of these ET awards are available in each region, how long they are, again, what the language requirements, all that information. So too, if you look at any of these awards, like the Salamanca Award I said before, you would click on it and it would give the details of the Salamanca Award. Again, in this case, they want someone working on international issues, but you've got to check for that. Not all awards in all countries have any specifics about what you should study, but some do. And there are no exceptions to rules like that. Right, so the first round of evaluation of a Fulbright application is in the US. The US, the Fulbright office in the US. And if you don't meet the basic requirements set by the host country, they won't even pass your application on to the US committees that will send the top applications to Spain in this case. Right, so you can't apply to a different program at Salamanca if they are only supporting ones in international relations. Questions? Each country will have these requirements, right? And they'll be different. Right? I know some of the students here, let's see, are interested in Taiwan, which is a great one. Taiwan is one of the places that has really gone for these MA partner awards. The UK and Taiwan are the two biggest partner award locations. And so when you do that, if you click on Taiwan, you'll see they have English teaching awards. They have, interestingly, two debate coaches to coach debate. If you happen to have a background in debate, there are 2 awards to coach debate in high schools. And then all of these 30 or so different Fulbright awards for particular universities. Right? Some you need to study, and some you can study in English, some you can't, some you need Chinese, all different. And you have to click on them to see the difference of the specifics of those awards. And some are very broad, some are really specific, right? Whatever it is, an award in ethnic relations and cultures, or in brand and fashion management. Some are very specific like that, some probably aren't applicable to us. An award in semiconductor technology, but others really are. Teaching Chinese as a second language could be, right? All sorts could be. But it really takes some looking around. And I will say this, that I am not expert in all these universities. I'm not expert in all the fields in these universities. And the people who are best placed to help you to say, not only can you study your field at this university, but it's an excellent place for a DePaul graduate in whatever you're graduating in, are your professors. I do that for my philosophy students. I know that certain of these MA programs are really great places to do an MA in philosophy. But your professors are best suited to know that. They have just 4 open study research awards. So they, like the UK, have moved most of their awards to these partner awards. And again, if you click on any of them, whatever it is, whatever, Taiwan Normal University in Translation, Award in Translation, you will get a whole list, like we saw before, of their specific requirements for this one scholarship. The level of languages, what they're looking for, do they prioritize, what students do they prioritize, all those kinds of things. How long the grant period is, could it be renewed for a second year? Certain awards can be renewed in Taiwan for a second year because their MAs are longer than 1 year. That's not typical in the UK. Sometimes that's possible. In Taiwan, that's sometimes possible. All right, so this one you can get renewed if you have a GPA, higher than a B, you have a chance to have it renewed for a second year. That is quite unusual for these Taiwan awards. So I will give out, as I said, a cheat sheet later of some of the MA programs that are useful. But if you're interested in Taiwan, I would look through this list and see which of the areas of study that the particular awards has seem good for you, and then speak to your professors, who might know people at these universities, things about these universities. Questions? Mace, I told you I was going to say something about Austria, because they have very unusual awards. That they have again, Fulbright keeps things interesting. So they do not have ETA awards in Austria. They have very great ones for us, what they call the combined award, where you teach English part of the day and you have a research project as well. That's very unusual. No other country that I know of has an award like that, but they have these combined awards, as well as some specific awards for, diplomatic study. I know we have some diplomacy studies here in which you need high proficiency in either French or German, and some proficiency in the other language, in either French or German as well. So again, tick through those requirements are very specific for Austria. For German language in Germany, there are, it's the old school. Maybe I'll show you one country like that, then I'll stop. This is what Fulbright used to look more like what Germany looks like, and that is just two types of awards: English Teaching Assistant Awards and Open Study Research Awards. But now the trend is countries taking these Open Study Research Awards and partnering with universities and using them towards MA study and offering free tuition. Germany doesn't offer any of those. The UK offers, why don't I say the UK and then I'll get off. The UK offers, like Taiwan, many. UK has no English teaching awards, as you can imagine, but it has, 40 or so MA partner awards. Each one, just one award. And then, the UK ones are typically in all disciplines. Few aren't. There's one in classical acting, but many are broad. Whatever the university offers, they're open to. I did speak a bit before about the different competitive levels of these awards, and it is worth thinking about. Again, I would never suggest choosing an award based on how competitive or not competitive it is, but it is the differences are really stark. So if you're going to find an award that isn't as competitive at a university that you are well suited for, that you're excited to go to, maybe that your faculty know students at, that is a great fit. You see, these are 40 or so UK awards, and there's a reason why I'm going through them all. Again, if you clicked on any of those, it would say the specifics of that award. Sometimes it'd be very, the Sterling Award in Health, Wellbeing, and Sport, very specific, but many others aren't. Like Warwick, as I said, that's the university that my students in philosophy, it's a very good philosophy department. And so it's very well suited for them. And so they would click on here to see what they say specifically, what Warwick would like to see in the application, even beyond what you have to do for the basic Fulbright application. When I give it that cheat sheet later, I'll have all of the countries that have these MA partner awards. But the main ones, as I said, are the UK and Taiwan, by far the most. Then Spain and Ireland both have some. Australia has a few. Canada has a few. Some of the Scandinavian, Finland has a few. It is a newer trend. It seems to be growing, but there's not much public information on that kind of trend, and they change from year to year. So clearly universities are deciding whether they want to do it, how many applicants they get. They're thinking about those, changing what the focus is. So if you see something you're interested in, but you're not applying till a year from this coming fall, be sure next April to look to make sure that the award you're interested in is still the same. All right. Thank you. Thumbs up, Hal. Okay, so this is what I want to get to. At the bottom of any Fulbright page, where the contacts are on most websites, contact us, there's a statistics page. So any Fulbright page, you can find the statistics page. If you click on it and you click here, Study Research and English Teaching Awards, you will get to the page, the place where you can get the data on the number of recent applications for these awards. And so you pick what countries here. And so what did we just, we were talking about, if I click off just so we can look at, say, at Taiwan, why not, since they're just visiting there. If we look here at all these countries you can look at, we'll look at Taiwan, and what it does here is it tells us for the last 3 cycles how many people applied for each award. Right, so it's no predictor. Past what investment companies say, past performance is no guarantee of future success. Absolutely, you'll see they change. But particularly with Taiwan or the UK, some of these awards change. So if the award wasn't there last year, there will be no statistics for it. But it is very interesting, the differences in the numbers of applications. Whatever it is, some have 30 applications, some have 10 or 11. And sometimes there are reasons, right? Sometimes you need really high language levels, or there's a very narrow, it's only, an award only for, what do we just say, sport and health, or whatever it is, or a very science, a STEM focused award that you need high level science to apply for. But these are radically different. And one of the things you'll see for many of these, Taiwan awards, there aren't that many applicants for these specific MA awards. So if you can find a program that you're eligible for, that's good for you to study, it's a great thing to think about. Down here, we see the number of applicants for the ETA. The second last line, English Teaching Award. And so there have been somewhere between 582 and 689 applications for these approximately 200 or 200 and a bit awards. So, 200 out of 600 or 700. So one between a third and a quarter, right? So that's competitive, but some ETAs are much more competitive, are 1 in 10. There are no numbers for this year. They are just making these awards. They're not all finalized. Eventually they will be here. So if you look back I don't know, we don't know when, but certainly in the summer, I think these numbers will be filled in. Professor Jin.
Yeah, I have a question. I feel like based on my observation in the past at least 10 years, I feel like ETA is more popular among DePaul students, right? Is that correct?
Well,
for modern languages students.
Yes, I think modern languages, the modern language students really are well suited for applying for these kinds of awards, for the ET awards, where you need that language study. The big MA is the UK, and there having language skills doesn't help. It doesn't give you an advantage. Taiwan, it does. And so I think but I think that's right. I think there are fewer students applying for the Open Research Awards. They are very tough fewer DePaul undergraduate students, or I don't say fewer, not many DePaul undergraduate students applying for those Open Research Awards. They're even when the numbers aren't terribly competitive, they're very hard to win, because you're competing against someone who has proposed a dissertation, has faculty who are, who understand their research, who really have huge advantages, that it's not easy to make up a plan for what you will do in another country. And so these MA awards are very helpful, but I think you're right, Professor Jin, that probably the UK awards aren't as exciting, or, the modern language students aren't as focused on those UK awards, because they are for, they don't require language study. I guess Austria, Taiwan, there are places. For Spanish, Mexico has a few, and Spain have a few. For places that have MA awards where language study is beneficial. Clearly, modern language students can apply, and I know I'm working with one this year who will be working on, applying to a UK school as well. And it could be that your experience in languages could be beneficial, if you're studying, planning to study linguistics at a UK university, your language study is a plus for you as well. So I don't mean to say that it's not. But yeah, I think that might have something to do with it, Jin. That was a very long answer for your question. Yeah. I feel a kind of responsibility to do this, because that wasn't, and so so we're on the statistics page. I'm going to just go to show I've got my examples of like the radical difference in those kind of numbers, and just if you can find the difference, so I'm looking at the UK awards. And if we look at, say, at the London School of Economics, which is a great place to study political science, study philosophy, I could send my undergraduate philosophy students to apply there, but every year there are between 84 and 100 applicants for one award. These are top students from all across the country. It is incredibly competitive. It's write a fantastic application and it's still a lottery, I think. I have no confidence that we will be able to, that anyone applying for this will, and that's the case for all of the sort of the very well-known UK universities. University College London might even be harder. Yeah, that they always have over 122 applications for one award. Edinburgh, Glasgow, these, Edinburgh had 124 this year. But if you look at other schools, it's just not the case. If we look at Warwick, this year only had 18. And Warwick is actually better for my students to study philosophy than London School of Economics is. Right? But only 18 students applied. And that is hugely different, because the first round of analysis is when they pare it down to 5 or so, and they send 5 applications to the UK for them to look at. And to be one of the top 5 applications of 18, well, that's a goal I think we can do. I think we can put together a fantastic application, our students. To be one of the top 5 of 120, that's a crapshoot, And so it's really worth figuring that out. What's the Warwick in your field? All right, what's good in geography? What's good in, and your professors are the best place. And if they know people at these universities, that's the other thing that we now have come to hear. When you're applying to one of these MA programs in any of these countries, MA partner programs, you do not need to have an invitation. You'll need to apply to the university and get in, but that will happen after your Fulbright application, because the application system doesn't even open yet, typically in these universities, till later in the year. You'll need to apply, but that's not usually as hard as winning the Fulbright. So you will be able to get in, I think, to most of these programs. But if you can get a letter of invitation to these MA programs, all the better. And that's what we're hearing back from people who have participated in the review of applications. It's not required. It's not easy to get, because you're asking a faculty member, hey, can you invite me, even though if you don't know that I'm yet in your program? I haven't even yet applied to your program. It's hard to get a letter like that. But I know faculty at some of these programs in philosophy, and I can contact the faculty, introduce my students to that faculty, and that makes it much easier to get a letter of invitation. And so if your faculty not only say, hey, so-and-so school is great for linguistics or geography or X, and I know someone there, and I'm going to get you in touch with them, well, that's a great way to get a letter of invitation, even to a master's program. Clearly, that letter won't be able to say you're going to get in yet, but that this student is well suited. I'd be excited to work if they came to our university, all that kind of stuff. Questions? Comments? All right, I'm going to go back now to the main page of the Fulbright U.S. Student Program. And so we are looking under a country, but we want to look at it as applicants. I'd suggest reading all of these drop-down bars here. There are different ways you can search. The search engine's okay here. I think going country to country is probably slow, but probably better. There is a search engine. You can search for types of awards. You can search for a Fulbright program advisor. That's me, so you know who that is. You can do this award search, and then you can put in something that you want, geography, what I just say, or health, and it will point out where it's like it comes up in a listing, but that really won't tell you what's a great program for geography or linguistics or something like that. I think, again, your professors are the best people for that. But what I want to look at here is the application components. And the application components are a little bit different for the Study Research Award versus the English Teaching Award. And so what you should do is, if you know you are applying, interested in one over the other, click on them. And so if you're interested in the ETA, the English Teaching Assistant Award, this is the components for every country. So I said there are lots of differences, but the basic components are the same. But sometimes to be eligible to apply, that's differentiated by country, or what you should include in the essay is different by country. So in Spain, as we said before, if you're applying for the ETA, you should in your essay say which region of Spain you want to work in. Right? But in other countries, you should not do that. It would seem very presumptuous if you included that in other countries. But the basic requirements are the same, and they are, some of them are just straightforward, the biographical data, the program information. You don't really need a title for the English teaching assistantship. You do when you're doing research. You do have to write an abstract, but the abstract is really an overview of this, the statement of grant purpose. That's your main essay. And they give a very good description of the statement of grant purpose. There's one required both for the ETA and for the study research, although it's longer for the study research. And so when we speak, those of you who are interested in here, I will also offer you some DePaul examples, both of past successful statements of grant purpose and some outlines that we've written up. But the first thing to do, even before you come to me to talk about it, is to read through this description. All right, this is the narrative you need to be putting together, what you need to make yourself eligible for the award. And what you'll notice, and sometimes it's surprising for students, is for the ETA, you are applying to be a teacher in the host country. So your academics, your research, that's all interesting, and you can bring it as examples, but it's examples to show that you will be a good teacher there. All right, you need some experience teaching. That does not mean an education degree. It can be whatever it is, tutoring, working with, in a nonprofit, teaching English, helping students around the university. But you need examples like that, such that you can, help give your account of yourself, of why Fulbright USA and then Fulbright in the host country should think that you will not only benefit from this experience, but that you will hit the ground running and be a great teacher for this program. And so there's a whole lot of, descriptions. That was weird. Yeah, there's a whole lot of description. The one thing that happened, one thing that I mentioned before, and it's important if you're speaking to people who applied for these in the past, last year the application changed. And it changed in two ways. One way, this essay became a little bit shorter. It used to be that you uploaded a document, and so people could fiddle with the borders and stuff and fit in more, and it became a text box, so you couldn't do that anymore. And so there's a very strict character limit. And the other way is they got rid of the second essay. So if you're talking to someone who applied for Fulbright more than two years ago or more, they'll ask, hey, what did you include in your personal statement? And the answer is there is no personal statement. They've gotten rid of the personal statement. There's just the statement of grant purpose that we've been talking about. And this is the same for the ETA, the teaching, and for the study research. There are short answers. There were always a couple of short answers, but now there's an extra short answer, this flexibility and adaptability. So instead of a second essay, a personal essay, there's now one of the short answers that says, explain to us why we should think that you are an adaptable person who will do well with all of the difficulties of coming to a new country, working in a new language, and being in a school of some sort where you are really an employee. This is new last year, so we don't have a lot of feedback on it yet. They give a brilliant, the example, but one of the things they say is use specific examples, either in the singular or plural, to show that you will be adaptable. That doesn't mean that you have to have traveled abroad. They don't assume that you must have done that, but something that it shows that you are able to overcome challenging situations and thrive. How personal you want that to be, that's up to you. All right. And that's something that sometimes I speak with students about, and I do not, there are things that happen to us that we do not want to share, and that makes perfect sense. But like every sentence you include in your application, I think what you write here, and I say this to students, that every line should be something that only you could write. Skip the generalities. Don't tell Fulbright what Fulbright, that Fulbright is a great program that promotes international study. Like, they get it. They know it, right? Like, why are you a good candidate for Fulbright to send to Taiwan or the UK or Spain or wherever they're going to send you? Yeah. That's a difficult one, the adaptability. Flexibility, adaptability. Again, these are the same for all the applications. These short answers are the same. The second short answer was always there. It had a bit of a different name before. It's called the community engagement. And that is, besides your main project, and that in the ETA, your main project is going to be teaching English. In a research or study, your main project will be a research project that you either do on your own or a research project that you do through the MA program. And that's something to remember. You really need a reason to go there, something that drives your research in whatever, linguistics or geography or philosophy, that you will undertake in that program. You can't just generally say, hey, I'd love to study linguistics in this MA program. You have to have a real interest that drives you there. This program can help me with this research. But besides that main project, you have to have some other sort of plan to be engaged in the host country, right? Fulbright is unlike just an award to study at the university. They're sending you to the country. You're going to be a representative of the US in the host country, and they want to make sure that you're going to be involved. They want to know you're not going to be someone that once you're done teaching, you'll be in your room on your computer doing the same stuff you could have done online when you're at home, Chicago or wherever, but you're going to get involved in something there. And they want some specifics. And these are, this is a chance to show your breadth. Could be something related to your research, but it doesn't need to. Hobbies should be something that you've done something before. It's not as, I've never done this, but I'd love to do that when I go there. That won't impress someone. But if you say, hey, I've done this here, I'd really like to go there and see how it's done there, show them how I do it, volunteer there. And I've contacted an organization that, whatever it does, maintains forests or helps whatever, children in after school programs or whatever it is, or I want to learn about the folk music there and I've got a whatever, all sorts of things that show your breadth and your interest in the host country. Mace, thank you for your hand.
So for the general application, you have like you were saying, the short questions and the statement of grant purpose. Is there any program specific, like country specific essays or whatever that you should write?
There are not. That's a good answer. Sometimes there are country or university specific content to include. I'm sorry about that noise, Ryan. Country or university specific content to include in these documents, but there aren't separate essays. Although, if you're applying for an MA award, you will have to apply to the university as well, and you'll have to hit their deadline. And what I've said is, I would make sure that you have done that later in the fall, as soon as their application system opens, so that you will have gotten in by the time of the beginning of the review, when the first round of review comes out, and that is late January and March or February. And some of those applications do have other sorts of documents. Yeah, and I'm happy to talk about those with you when you're applying for them. But yeah, the main application, again, it could be something to include here. Occasionally it will say something about the community engagement. Not typically, but occasionally they'll say something they'd like. Often that is, the awards that in more developing countries in which there's U.S. government support and there's less host country money, sometimes they'll want you to do something that relates to the consulate, but that's not typical. But again, that would be, you've got to become an expert on your country page, your award page and your country page, to see if there's anything to be included. But yeah, good question. There won't be a separate, the only other separate thing that there could be, this is good, I appreciate this question, and this is new this past year, was the application cycle. You get these awards in the fall. The first round of review after the Fulbright office sends, if they say whether yours is complete and you're eligible, they send it on to the review committee in the US. Those are people interested in your host country, non-experts. So if it's an MA or a research award, remember, you're writing for faculty who are not experts in your field, but have a connection to the country, typically. They will make a decision about the top awards to send to the host country. That can be 5, it can be some other number. Once those are sent to the host country, you'll find those are called semifinalists, and you'll find out about that in January, February, typically late January, whether you're a semifinalist. That means your award was sent on to the host country. And after that stage, you've got to be really careful with your email. Whatever email you put in with your award, your DePaul email you can use, or another Gmail or whatever, because they might contact you. In the past, we used to say they might contact you for an interview at that stage. They still might, but last year, a few of them contacted people to put together a little video, to answer a question in a video and to upload it. And they only had 72 hours to do that. And so you've got to be on top of things. There is, that is always changing. And if that happens, I am happy to be in touch and help with it. So you here, contact me. We set up a meeting and we try to help you to produce that, to practice for the interview or to produce that video. So that is very country specific and year specific. Great question. I realize we are right at the end. Is it okay if we go just a little bit longer? Yeah, great. So one last short answer question. This is called the impact of Fulbright Award. Again, this is the same for ETAs and research study awards. This is about what you plan to do in the future and how the Fulbright will impact it. All right, this is the place to say that, after the Fulbright ETA or research study, I plan to do X. And this Fulbright will help me do it. Again, I've used this language before. They are not supporting people for gap years, right? They are supporting people who will benefit from this project and take it on in all sorts of interesting ways. Don't feel it has to be just what you think academics want you to do. Go on to be a professor. No. Fulbright and your faculty want you to do all sorts of interesting things with your education, with your Fulbrights. But they want to see that you will be transformed and you will make use of it, and that you will be a committed alum of the country when you're whatever it is, working somewhere high up in some company or nonprofit or government. You will be looking for interns from that country. You will be looking for relationships, binational relationships with that country. To write here that you're committed to international relations in general and you want to do lots of stuff in the world and give lots of examples of different countries will not help you win this award. All right, they want to see that you are excited and know about this country and want to continue to be a connector, a bridge between the U.S. and that country. So, again, the ETA and the study research have very similar. The only difference is the statement of grant purpose. I guess you have to have a title here. You have to put a title for a project title, particularly for the study research. But the only real difference is the statement of grant purpose. It's longer and it is tied to your research and the research you plan to take up there if you're applying for an MA or an open research position. That's important to remember, that even if you're applying for an MA, it's not enough to say, hey, I really want to go there. It's a great MA program, whatever it is. I'm interested in these, but you need to have a project. Why should Fulbright send you to go do that there? And you got to think through that Fulbright will say, like, why couldn't they do that MA in the US? Like, why do we need to send them to the UK to study linguistics in this way, or Taiwan, and you need answers for that. You need to answer that. That's the professors, that's archives, that's research possibilities, that is student cohorts, that's whatever it is. But there have to be answers for that. They will not send you there. They do not give these awards to the smartest student, the best student, if we could even decide who that is. They want to know people who will thrive in these awards, right? In ways they wouldn't have been able to thrive, that Fulbright will make a difference in your life, career. Okay. All right. So there's tons more. Please make yourself, poke around here, look around a lot. Feel free to contact me with questions. You can also, this is, besides the statistics, this contact us button is a very helpful one here. Fulbright really wants to hear from you. You can write to me, but if I write, I just write to the general Fulbright, Fulbright advisors. But if you write, they want you to write to the person who's in charge of Europe or East Asia, and they want to be in touch with the student. They want you to take ownership of your application. So feel free to reach out to me with questions, but for specific detailed questions, they really want to hear from you. Again, this is at the bottom of any Fulbright page with with the statistics, the contact us button. We'll give you all of these all of these contacts. Professor Jim.
Okay, Professor Goldman, one last thing I think everyone is curious about now is a timeline. There's an internal timeline for application, right? Can you share that with us?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. I have it on a document. That is great. Very briefly. Let's see if I can do that quickly. All right. Timeline. Right? This is a timeline for juniors and seniors, right? Spring quarter, you're investigating the awards, you're choosing an award, you're planning your application. I realize you're busy, you're not going to be writing it all, but really getting this early work done allows you to speak with your recommenders, right? It's not easy to make contact with all your faculty over the summer. Some faculty, rightly so, are doing their own research and they don't do as much of their service work over the summer. So contacting them now is really important, both to get help about universities and to plan that reference letter. Faculty are setting up their plans for late August, early September when they'll write that letter. Drafting statements, done. Over the summer, keep working on the statements. Contact me, the National Scholarship Advisor, as well as the Writing Center, when you sign up for appointments at the Writing Center, certain fellows at the Writing Center will have listed near their name where you can sign up for. They're the Fulbright Fellows. They've been trained by me to help with your applications. Then these dates. The date for our internal application is September 4th. By this date, you do not submit the application. You're on the Fulbright website and you click the box that says ready for campus review. Do not submit your application. Submitting your application is final, unfortunately. There's nothing to do. You submit your application after you've had the campus review, after you get feedback, after you unlock it and go back and make changes after you've gotten feedback from us, then you submit it before October 6th. By September 4th, we, DePaul, to have this review, would like all of the application. But if one of your letters of reference is not in yet, we can go ahead with that review. So if a faculty member says, I can't get it to you until September 15th, I can't get it, they submit it automatically. They don't get it to you, that's fine. But if you're applying for an open research award where you absolutely have to have an invitation, we can't go ahead with the interview and the review process unless you have that invitation. Everything hinges on that. And many applications don't go forward because you haven't been able to secure an invitation from a professor overseas. They're very hard to come by. Getting a professor to invite you for an MA is not required. It's beneficial, so we can go ahead with that review even without such a letter. Just a bit more in the timeline. Again, you'll hear back about semifinalists late January, early February. There could be interviews, or I didn't update it here. The past year, they could be requests for you to make a video or something like that in lieu of of an interview. In the spring come the final decisions, right? This year they came in a timely fashion. Last year they were a bit late. They didn't come till May, June. This year most of the decisions are on their way now, April, May. Finding out whether you were chosen as one of the winners of those semifinalists, or whether you are next in line in case one of the winners says no to their awards. So that's the timeline. I wanted to share one other thing with you that hopefully will be helpful. I'm going to stop sharing this. The one other document that I'd like to share, this is a sort of cheat sheet that I have put together. Let's see how quickly I can find it. And those are for those of you interested in the MA Awards. For those of you interested in the MA Awards, sorry. There it is. For those of you interested in the Partner Awards, you see my screen, the Fulbright MA Partner Awards. This isn't all the awards. What I've done is gone through by country and chosen those awards that are relatively interesting for those of us who would be here. Liberal arts students, modern languages students. So I've left out some of them, those for veterinarians or doctors or things that our DePaul students aren't. And so here for each country that has MA awards, I have put the name of the award, what's basically covered. Do they have an area of interest? Australia has an award that focuses on the environment, public health, creative and the performing arts. If you ask why, I would say I have no idea. No one has any idea. That's the university has decided Western Sydney University will give free tuition in these areas. These change by year. Then I have included something here that in the past years, there have been approximately 11 to 14 applications for one award. So not one of the most competitive awards. And I've also included a link here to get you to the award page. Canada is a bit unusual. They have partner awards, but not at specific universities. They're MA awards eligible at any Canadian university. There are 9 of them. There have been between 56 and 106 applications of the last couple of years for 9 awards. So 9 out of 56 or 9 out of 106. So I've included all of the, as I said, Scandinavia, Finland has a number of very specific MAs. Some of them, again, only have a handful of applications. So if you have an interest that is done at, I'm not going to try to pronounce that, at Turku, right? That could be very interesting. France only has very specific awards. There should be a number 2 there. I don't know why that's not. Ireland, as I said, has a handful of awards that are very interesting. Some are very competitive, right? 55 to 68 award applications for one award at University College Dublin. But if you applied to, Dublin City University, there are only 20 applications, right? Just a third as competitive, much less competitive. But again, you would have to have some reason to go to Dublin City University, right? So again, if there's some field that's of interest, Italy has a few awards, Mexico has a few awards, the Netherlands, South Korea, a few awards, Spain, as I said, a few that are relevant for us. Then the bigger ones, Taiwan, and I've listed those that I think might be interesting for our students. But again, you can look through the general awards. There are 7. Turkey, I guess, is 1, but the United Kingdom has lots. And again, I've included them here with the links. You can certainly go to the homepage on the awards page and look for these awards, and you can find the number of applicants again at the bottom of any Fulbright page. But I want to include it here just to make it a little easier when you're looking through these. And even if you want to show this to a faculty member, who knows something about Taiwan or knows something about your interests and the UK, to see, hey, are any of these universities, besides the very obvious ones that get 100 applicants a year for one award, any of these, are they interesting for a student like me with the interest that I have? Those of you who are watching this in a recording, feel free to email me and I can send you it. This is an attachment agoldman@depaul.edu, and I'm happy to send it as an attachment. So that's what I wanted to get through. Sorry, those of you here, that we have gone a little late. I appreciate your patience. If there are any questions, I'm happy to stick around, take them and stick around. Yes, nice.
So I mentioned before I'm a freshman, and I'd like to know like what could I do between now and senior year to help make me look better, like to help make me a better candidate for the Fulbright.
Great. I mean, I want to be careful, right? I don't want to tell you what to study, right? So I would say in general, get excited about everything you're studying. Find an interest, right? Work on your language skills, develop relationships with faculty, find out about their research, right? Take up their suggestions. When they tell you a paper is great, follow them up on it. Do that add-on, right? Take on a thesis if you're able to in your area, right? Do internships, right? Be an engaged student, and it does well in this regard. That's the general advice, I think. The specific advice, I think, really depends on the award that you'd be interested in. So what I would tell you to do for an ETA is different than for an open research award. For an open research award, you have to develop a research project as an undergraduate already, right? It's difficult. It's really difficult to do. You've got to really become an independent scholar already as an undergraduate student, not as a freshman, but as a junior, senior, right? But as an ETA student, you've got to work on languages, become interested in stuff, but also get some practice teaching. That might mean like looking into elective courses in the School of Education, right? There are courses that can be taught on teaching English as a second language there. But it might also mean something about what you do in the summer. I've seen lots of students, doing volunteering with all sorts of organizations to practice teaching, to get experience teaching English. That's both a great thing to do and good practice for you for a future ETA application. Study abroad is great, but not everyone can afford to do it. That's absolutely understood by Fulbright. There's no expectation that you do it, but take on challenging things, right? Not so you have an answer for the question of, what shows your flexibility, but so you're challenged, so you develop the skills of flexibility so that you will have a good answer. Not so you'll have a good answer, but that you'll have the skills that actually give you a good answer. And then, once you have some idea of what area it is, I would speak to me sooner rather than later. I mean, freshman would be soon, very early. I'm happy to do it, but sophomore year is not, right? Junior year is a perfect time, right? Junior is a perfect time to start preparing the application, and so you can apply at the beginning of your senior year.
I want to say that's a great question because many students who are watching this video, probably they're not junior yet, and this will be very inspiring for them.
Absolutely. And so what was my answer? Get engaged, right? Get engaged with the things you're interested in. And that is both in school and outside of school, right? That Fulbright, really repays, you need to say something for your community engagement. And if you haven't done anything, it's hard to answer. But if you happen to be interested in dance or music or volunteering or children, or those are all things that those host countries will love to hear about you doing when you get there. And investigate the countries you're interested in, their cultures. Start learning about their folk music or their approach to education or the way they manage their forests. I had a student who was interested in forest management in forestry management in Spain, right? It doesn't have to be the most obvious thing that country does, right? The people making these decisions are interested in a whole host of things. They don't want to give them to the students who are interested in the obvious touristy things in their country. Get really engaged, learn about the country. You're going to have to show that you are really interested in, not just in a Spanish-speaking country, but in this specific Spanish-speaking country. All right. Any other questions?
It's just me, so
Okay.
I would is A Goldman like a Goldman at DePaul.edu a good way to reach you just for
It is
meetings or
a great way to
whatnot?
reach. Yeah, Professor Avery Goldman and A Goldman. Yeah. Yeah,
I'll have to take you up on your offer.
you're welcome. I'll be happy to speak.
All right. I want to thank Professor Goldman for so much for being here for like hour and almost hour and a half to share all this information with us. We hope we have more modern language students that can apply for this or getting prepared to apply for this scholarship. I want to mention that you can, in addition to contact Professor Goldman, you can also contact your program director, any professors you took classes with in our department. They all have a lot of connections with the target, the country where you plan to go. I believe so. Please use all these
Absolutely.
resources. Yeah.
And that includes language study programs in the summer beforehand. All those things are helpful, right? All those build a CV that says, you are a serious student who has been working towards this. Yeah.
All right. Then thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you, Mace, for staying till the end of it.
Yes. Sorry for going long.
Oh, no worries. I was very much enjoying this.
Great.
All right, great.